plan.
That's a Herculean task.
Yes.
Uh,
All right. It's 9 o'clock and we have a quorum, so I'm going to, because I promised I would make this as short as humanly possible.
Is Kathy not here, or is Kathy here and I can't see her?
Oh,
Oh, yeah, she's here.
She just came in.
Okay.
All right. I promised I would keep this as short as humanly possible. So I'm going to call the meeting to order at 9 a.m. And the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from December 1. I sent those out last night. Are there any edits or changes?
I reviewed. I don't have any suggested changes.
All right. Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All right. This is a recorded vote. And Dennington?
Who moved? Someone's got to make these minutes. Who moved?
Oh, okay. We're all squared away. Yep.
Andrew moved,
Okay.
I seconded.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So Dennington,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Jasinski,
Aye.
Stivers,
Aye.
Hamilton, I, Landry.
Aye.
All right. I think I got everybody here. All right. So that's item number one. Then item number two is the letter to go out to abutters, and I need to give the committee a quick update on some activities that have happened. First, the good news. I contacted John Butler and Bill Cundiff about whether there were alternative uses planned for the site, and the answer is no. So from that perspective, the water department has no plans for the site, nor does the DPW. So I think we're clear on that front. That's the good news. The bad news is Bill has been doing his due diligence and reached out to the engineering team. And it appears that lead paint was commonly used when painting water towers. And so the water tower was felled essentially the same way you fell a tree. And so we have the possibility that there is lead paint contamination on the site. And Bill is trying to figure out what it is we need to do to understand whether it is or isn't contaminated. And if it is contaminated, what, if any, remediation is possible. So that is clearly a spanner in the works, as they say. And my question to the committee is, we have this public forum tentatively scheduled for the 9th. Do we want to proceed, or do we want to take a pause while we resolve the lead paint issue?
How long will it take to resolve the lead paint issue?
I don't know. Bill was looking into, I was looking into what was required. So at this
there'd be
point,
soil testing, and then if there's lead in the soil, they'd have to remove the topsoil.
that's my guess.
Yeah.
Marguerite, you're asking or telling?
No, that's a sort of, usually when there's lead paint in the soil, they have to take it up.
Yeah.
But I don't know how bad it would be.
Al, do we know precisely where the water tower was and where it fell when they took it down? So there's a target zone fairly
Actually,
contained.
In the water department, there is a picture of the water tower coming down. So we actually, I think, have a pretty good idea. We know where it was because it had a foundation and a water line, and we have a pretty good idea where it fell.
Okay.
And do you know when the water tower was replaced or taken down?
The water tower came down in 1991. And, my guess is that the lead paint was probably used on the exterior. Actually, I've got a cousin who's the chief engineer for the Monroe County Water Authority. I'm going to reach out and ask him.
Why wouldn't you just ask John Boland?
Yeah, I can do that too. Good idea.
And we've had several, environmental firms work with us. Concom has had several, so maybe trying to connect with Melissa Danza, see if we can get a quick evaluation from somebody that we've dealt with. Take a look and get some suggestions.
Okay. Yeah, I know Bill is Bill is working that. I'll coordinate with Bill, and then we'll get Melissa involved if that makes a lot of sense.
I would recommend that we postpone the public forum until we've got this answer, so we really do this right. We've got all our ducks in a row when we have that forum, and don't sit there and have to answer questions about whether that ground is polluted or not, instead of focusing on what we want to focus on, which is how to build something affordable on the property.
That's the conclusion I've more or less come to. I think that's going to mean that we're probably not going to make town meeting. You know, I doubt we're going to resolve this within a month, but maybe I could be happily surprised.
Well, Al, I think that, if we could get a resolution of what's there and what the next step might be, that could open a path to keep the process moving. But without some understanding from a testing standpoint that, we went out and did a soil sample or whatever and found nothing, or found lots of lead or whatever, I think that there's the way to moving forward, regardless of whether, if we had to do remediation, for example, that becomes a more contained project and we know what's involved potentially there.
Yeah.
But again, I agree.
Especially, Sam, if they find no lead, then we probably can make it. So Al, when you say town meeting, to allow the Affordable House Trust Fund to buy or to have the property transferred to the trust, correct? From the town. That's what the town meeting article would be.
Yes. Yes, and I have asked town council to draft that article for us. So we'll have it there. We can have it as a placeholder in the warrant. And what I'm concerned about is that there's a certain amount of time that we have to socialize the concept and to meet with the neighborhood. And, I think that is critical to do, to make sure that this goes smoothly through town meeting, or as smoothly as practical through town meeting.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, how long would the testing, does the testing have to go out to bid? The testing, is that an RFP situation?
I don't know the answer to that. Yeah.
I would say no.
Okay. All right. Thank goodness we have people who know what they're talking about. Yeah. I assume we have people essentially on retainer to do this sort of stuff. Is that right,
No.
Mark?
No, we have people that we know we can call, but we don't have anyone necessarily on retainer for this.
Okay. Okay. But you don't think we have to put this out to bid?
No.
No.
Mark, doesn't it
Okay.
depend on the amount?
Well, so, and Liz can correct me, since we have counsel here, there is an exemption in the procurement law for this type of work. So that exemption would preclude it from having to be something we'd have to bid regardless.
So if they could get the answer to whether or not it's a contaminated site within a month, it would still make it to town meeting.
Yes, I think it's going to be harder to go to town meeting with a full package in terms of, this is with specifics about what we want to build. Just because I don't think we can reasonably ask developers to put their time and effort into something when, we aren't sure yet whether it's a buildable site, or whether, what has to be done to the site.
It looked like Liz was going to say something about the procurement process. Liz, do you have a comment?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that the cleanup is a separate process, and that would require procurement. But if it's engineering services that are covering the testing, then it wouldn't need to be.
So yeah, just I was only speaking to the investigation piece, but obviously the cleanup piece, again, this is kind of just like Breakneck Hill.
Well, I was going to say Breakneck Hill. Now that makes sense. Okay, now I've
But
got it.
before we start, saying this is like this could be a
No. Just
could be
the
nothing.
Just the procurement.
This could be
piece.
Talking
nothing.
about the process.
I
The process, right?
So I
So
think
I-
that
Is there a
value of
charge?
knowing,
Is there a charge affiliated with the testing?
I'm sure that would be.
I'm sure there is, yes.
So the trust fund's paying for that then? The
Oh,
money's-
well, now the town owns it, so the town will pay for it, right?
Right,
Well,
but we're doing
I-
it not under the guise of the town, we're doing it for the Affordable Housing Trust.
Well, we're not doing it as the Affordable Housing Trust. My feeling, and is up for debate, is that this is a water department issue because this is an impact caused by work done as part of the water system. And so, you know, if the water system created a mess, and so yeah, there are, I'm less than clear about this, and Mark, you can correct me, but there's essentially a whole separate account for water projects. Is that correct?
There is an
Yeah.
engineering line item in the water budget for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to have that clarified. Thanks, Al.
Yeah.
And now, the more we could know about this, I mean, it seems to me there one possibility is that we find an engineering group that can do at least initial evaluation. And the more we know about, yes, oh, it's a big deal, or no, probably not much of a deal, I think that would be very helpful to take that next step without spending a ton of money before somebody comes back and says, okay,
All right.
take
And
$100,000.
I think John Boland would be very helpful in this process. He was the DPW head at that point, and I bet he could be very helpful as far as.
Yeah.
I think if you simply did a phase one, which is essentially a tabletop review, which would go in, look at all the records, look at everything, and determine whether there's something there that indicates that you may have an issue, which would lead to then further investigation and more substantive investigation. You know, that's something that probably can be done. And Kathy, that would include those conversations with these people, going through the records, finding out what we can for the information that we have.
Okay, so I will take the action item to meet with Bill Cunda and work up a plan. I'll contact Mr. Boland, and actually I'll probably contact both of the Bolands and to see what information they might have, and then hopefully maybe I'll include Mark as well to do sort of that tabletop review, and then get back to this committee and let you know what we find. And we'll try and do that in as expeditious a manner as practical.
Are there others that we need to update in terms of this conversation to make sure that they've seen it? Al, have you contacted other residents in the neighborhood or other interested citizens about this? Might be useful just to follow up to make sure that they know what we've done here and what we expect to do next.
This is the first body that I brought this information to.
But I'm saying, are there informal conversations you've had, like with the other residents or whatever, just to update people so they are in the loop? I think that would be useful.
Yeah, I can certainly do that. And there's nothing here we're trying to hide.
Right.
Right. And, you know, yeah, this is just, you know, part of the process. All right. I think we've covered that. I think
Al, if I could interrupt just briefly, who are the abutters going to be in this, literally the people whose property is contiguous and touches the boundary, or is it going to encompass more of the neighborhood?
300-foot radius usually.
Yeah, I was going to do the 300. Any property whose boundaries are within 300 feet is sort of the traditional, one of the traditional definitions of an abutter. It's
Okay.
not the only one. There are about 25 or 30 people who fall into that. You get the abutters list right out of the GIS system these days.
Okay.
It's
okay.
not. This is not a formal process that requires, you know, registered mail with return receipts and all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
This is a less formal, unless Liz tells us otherwise. So what I'm going to do is, why don't we go through the letter? But I think we're going to postpone the abutters meeting for now.
Well, why don't we take a vote and say that's what we want to do? I think,
Okay.
I mean, you've only heard from one or two people as far as.
Okay.
I just before we go on, I just want to be clear. So are we not looking at any engineering services to do this tabletop review? Al's gonna do this in lieu of that?
Yeah, the tabletop is essentially gathering what information we can gather, and then it is quite likely that the water department will want to engage engineering services, or this body, or frankly, the select board would request that be done. I will try and have some information pulled together prior to the next select board meeting. And so I think this is something, I think we should put this on the agenda for the select board. That is a way of informing the community.
How soon can they do how soon can actual soil samples be taken?
I don't know.
That's a whole, yeah, that's a whole other level of investigation.
Okay, so can we repeat how we're gonna do the tabletop?
All right, so I'm going to meet with Bill Cundiff.
Okay.
I'm going to contact John Boland. And we are going to try and review what records exist within the town so that we can essentially have pulled together the information that is readily available about this issue. At that point, I would assume that Bill and Mark and I and perhaps John Boland would sit down and have a discussion. And then I think there's going to be a recommendation about, you know, what the next steps are. That recommendation actually has relatively little to do with this body. I think it now really passes on into the realm of the select board and the water department and the DPW.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
That could produce a search then for some engineering input as a next step in the process, but
Yes.
I think that's what he's saying, Sam, is that the
Yeah.
next step to actually procure the engineer to do the project is outside the bailiwick of this.
Right.
It's really the owner of the property, which is the town, and its executive body and its operating body.
right.
Yeah, just from my perspective, sounds like, Al, the next step is just you are going to work with Bill and John Bull and just present some more information, because this I didn't anticipate this heading into this meeting. So just some more additional information would be helpful to think about really what the next step is. And maybe, I mean, I'm thinking that this happened recently enough that I'm a little bit optimistic that I don't know if there were some remediation measures taken at that point, or it's not as if if this work had happened in like 1950 or something, then it might be a different story. But I'm hopeful that it's not too much of an obstacle, but we'll just have to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Andrew, you're right. If they cleaned up the site aggressively and quickly when the tower came down, then there's probably not a huge amount of contamination, if any, there. But if they let it sit there for 10 years before they cleaned it up, then that's another issue. But so knowing that would be really helpful.
All right. So do we want to make a motion to proceed along those lines, or you just or is the committee comfortable with my just taking the ball and running?
I want to make a motion to defer the public forum until we have done the investigation of the impact of the lead paint on the tank.
Second.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Hang on here. I got to make a note here. So. All right. So Stivers,
Aye.
Dennington,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Kaczynski,
Aye.
Landry,
Aye.
Hamilton, aye. I didn't miss anybody, did I? No. Okay. All right. So if the committee is, I will continue to try and develop some more information. I quite literally Bill only brought this to my attention late last week. So kudos to him for being thorough and careful.
Al,
Kudos to you for taking point.
question. Can I ask Liz, is there anything else that other folks, might think about doing in this kind of situation? You folks probably seen similar kind of circumstances out there in the world. So anything else that we could be doing in parallel here somehow to expedite the process?
No, I think other than testing the soil, making sure that there's no contamination, if you can't do an RFP unless there's well, you could prepare an RFP, but it doesn't seem to make sense to go through the process unless you know
Okay.
if you want
Just
Take
wanted to be
on-
sure there was nothing obvious that we get a week or two down the road and say, oops, why didn't we do that? So,
to.
okay.
Do we know whose custody the land, well, whose custody it's in right now?
The
Which-
town.
Town owns the land.
The select board, right?
Yeah, effectively.
Not the
Yeah.
water department. Okay, that's
The,
good.
the deed was written in 1930 and it's, I think, says to the people of the town of Southborough. So I assume it's the select board.
I just wanted to make sure there weren't any Article 97 issues on the property, because if it was taken for the purpose of water or something to that effect, then you might have a hiccup.
Was it taken or was it, how did we get the land?
We got the land in 1931 from, I believe we got it from what was effectively a woolen mill in Southville or Porterville. And I think they gave it to us for a nominal fee so that we could build a water tower.
That they could use.
Yes, exactly. That's as much as I could discern from the deeds.
So Liz, there was a water tower on this land.
So you would just have to check town meeting votes and see if there were any town meeting votes related to the property that might cause any issues. That's something that you might want to do in the meantime.
And Al, I don't know if you've seen it, but we now have an electronic record of town meeting votes back in 1885 or something. Huge database of all that stuff. So it makes it much easier to find those things versus a big research project. So
Okay.
if anybody wants it, I can send it to them.
Yeah, okay, yes. I actually kind of enjoy doing historical research. So
Here you go.
it will be amusing.
For example, you wouldn't want to see a restriction on this land saying it can only be used for water by whoever gave it to us. So yeah, I think it probably would behoove us to do that research.
Yeah, I did look at the deed. I don't believe there are any restrictions in the deed. And there's been no activity at the registry since 1931. But yes, I can go. I'll certainly go back, to the Great Depression and see what came out. All right. One other quick item, which is I spent some time with town council trying to understand the process for selecting a developer. And town council's opinion is that process has to be done by this body as opposed to SHOPC, because this is the body that is required. I think at this point I'm going to try and develop a process document so that we are all clear on what the proper steps are. There are a few more than I would have liked. So, and I'll do that and have it available for the next meeting.
So if everything goes as planned, let's say the land is clean, let's just be optimistic, it's clean. So the plan is to ask the town to transfer it to the trust. The trust then develops the property, subdivides it, Al?
Yes, I think I'm not quite sure who is going to do the subdividing. I think the step to be done in parallel is to identify a development partner and the terms that we would have to engage a development partner. Then that could be any of a number of institutions. Dorian has, I think, a list of about 8 potential development partners. We had to go through a process that's a little more sophisticated than the letter that I drafted and that SHOPC was working on. We actually have to post it in the central register. We have to, which I'm assuming Mark and company know how to do. We have to actually develop evaluation criteria and a date when we open proposals.
Okay, but the long-term goal is to sell off a piece of it, take that money to help develop the piece we want to develop for affordable housing, or is that not true?
It depends on what the development partners propose. I think we should be fairly open to a variety. We could sell off a piece, or alternately, we could develop or work with a partner to develop a multi-family unit housing on that site. I think the Shopsy draft suggests that the preferred thing would be to put one or two multifamily units on the property. I think there's a reason that we might want to leave a portion of the property undeveloped, provide potential access to the parcels in the back. So that I think what we want to do is have the request be fairly open-ended, so that we can allow the development partners to come up with what they think their best proposal is.
All right, so I'm happy with the flexibilities, but it's 3 acres?
No. The Atwood property is 1.8 acres.
Okay.
The 3-acre parcel, which is owned by the abutters at 40, those abutters appear uninterested in selling.
Okay, so we're talking about 1.8 acres.
We were talking about the 1.8 acres with frontage on Atwood.
Okay.
That's the water tower site. Okay, if we're all squared away here, then I'm going to request a motion to go into executive session per Mass General Law 30A, Section 21, and not returning to open session for the following purposes: to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property as the chair has determined an open meeting may have detrimental effects to the town's position. It's exemption number 6. Is there a
Al,
motion?
you've got a person with a hand up in the audience. Well, now
Well,
we
I
took it down.
beg your pardon.
There's a person who had his hand up in the audience, but now he took it down.
Oh, I'll give them a.
No, it's back up. It's back up.
Okay,
So I didn't bring them over.
yeah.
Hello.
Hello?
Hi, good
Hello.
morning. Hi, how you doing? This is Carl LVD. I live at 22 Atwood Road.
Yes.
The direct abutters. I just have a question. I was wondering if when you go to the town to ask them to transfer the property to your committee, if that could include some open space. So instead of like maybe I'm kind of new to the town, been here a few years, but I've been looking at listening to some of these open space committee meetings, and it seems as though when the developers come in, they do like a perimeter maybe around where they were going to build and keep it as open space. And I was wondering if that's something that you have thought about or could address when you go to the neighborhood to say, look, there's 1.8 acres there. We're gonna ask it to be transferred to our committee, but at the same time, we're gonna designate a portion of that to be like open space.
I think so. Carl, thank you for the comment. I think that's a reasonable thing to discuss with the neighborhood. The requirement is that each lot, if we go sort of with conventional development, would be 25,000 square feet. So between the two, we can build 2 parcels, which would be 50,000 square feet, which is about 1.2 acres, give or take. So it's a 1.8 acre parcel. I think providing there is open space behind the parcel that the town owns, and providing access to that is certainly a very reasonable thing to consider and discuss.
Well, specifically, the open space that connects, it's actually in back of my house, but I don't know if anybody has a map there they could call up, but there is an open space that kind of connects to the person who lives in back of me, and it almost ends by my house. And I was thinking, not because that it would make sense to continue that open space to the street. I don't know if you guys have a map there. See where it is? You see where I'm talking about there?
I know what you're talking about, and I'd be happy to sit down with you in person and go over a map.
Okay.
So if you, my email address is on the town website. If you send me your email address, I'll sit down with you and go over it. Yeah, I think street access to the open space parcel is actually a good idea, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay, yeah, well, you know, the whole concept of this makes sense to me, the affordable housing. I'm just concerned that it just blends into the neighborhood, right? That it's not going to be too much there. There's a lot of, it's a good parcel. I mean, 1.8 acres is a good size, right? I think the neighborhood could handle one maybe duplex or two single family. This is my own opinion on this. But to present it to the neighborhood and try to get people to kind of buy into it, shall I say, without, you know, a lot of controversy, to add some open space to it. I know it's a little self-serving to myself because I live right next door, but, you know, I think overall, there is a lot of open space back there, I guess, in back of where that 3 acres are. So you can't really get to it if you just made it all, if you didn't continue the open space. So that's just my thought.
Okay. No, thank you. That's duly noted.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay. So is there a motion to enter into executive session as I described?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Dennington?
Aye.
We got Cook,
Aye.
Landry,
Aye.
Stivers,
Aye.
Jasinski,
Aye.
Hamilton, aye. Okay, so we are now in executive
Oh, hold on,
session.
we just need a minute to lock the webinar.
Yep.